Hello readers by eyes and by ears. This is Mari Chan and welcome back to my channel. Today we are continuing with the reading of Remnants of Filth, which is also known as Yu by Rou Bao or simply Meat Bun, and we're covering chapters 119 through 121. So I hope you all enjoy. Chapter 119. His true intent was this. Goo Mahng shook violently. How could he not tremble? What he had was so little. Even as a famous general, he'd always had to shamelessly beg the nobles for favor and acknowledgement. Now the emperor was offering him everything he had so painstakingly asked for, promising him all of it, crushing him beneath his weight. How could his spine stay straight? Unbreakable pride was a privilege of the likes of Shee or Muzhonglian. It had never been his. Perhaps the emperor was well aware of this. He was in no rush. He stood, hands behind his back, waiting for Goo Mahng to calm down, to submit, to take the first slow step onto the path of no return, waiting for the beast of the altar to see he had no other choice, to take up the bridle himself. It was only to be expected when, after a long while, Goo Mahng lifted his head, those tear-filled eyes, black as pitch, fixing on the ruler in front of him. His face was serene. It was only that the light in his eyes had become embers, his heart like ashes. "Then I ask your Imperial Majesty," Goo Mahng murmured, "to please grant one more request." "Tell me." "Zhanxing. He shouldn't be kept in the dark. Allow me to go personally to the prison and tell him the truth." The emperor closed his eyes and sighed. "Subject Goo, why bother? Because I have a guilty conscience. It is better for him to never know the truth, for you, for us, and for Chonghua. No, he must know. He has sacrificed enough. I implore you, just this once, have some consideration for him." Goo Mahng closed his eyes in torment, tears trickling between thick lashes and slipping down his face. "He's been wronged, and I can't save him. But at least I can tell him." Those final words were like a red-hot iron branding his heart. "At least I can tell him he did nothing wrong. At least I can prevent him from dying in ignorance." As he finished speaking, his voice weakened, and his silhouette gradually became transparent. The scene before Moshi's eyes dimmed, and darkness swallowed the golden terrace. The last thing Moshi saw was Goo Mahng slowly kowtowing, lowering his head at the emperor's feet. It looked nothing like a pledge of loyalty, but rather an exhausted prostration. Night descended before his eyes. At the same time, a sharp agony exploded in Moshi's limbs. The history recording jade scroll fed on his strength, but Moshi felt that what flowed from him wasn't spiritual energy. His very soul seemed to be drawn out, pulled from his body, and ground to fine powder. But it didn't seem to hurt. The words spoken on the Golden Terrace 8 years ago echoed in his head. Goo Mahng's herald expression lingered before his eyes. One rainy night, one scheme, one sacrifice deceived the world for 8 years. "General Goo, we need someone loyal enough, brave enough, and clever enough. We need this person to infiltrate the Liao kingdom and send information back to us, to become the poison in the bellies of both Liao and those old nobles. Are you willing to endure a difficult mission as Chonghua's right hand? Are you willing? From now on, in all the world, only one other will know the truth. The countrymen you protect will spurn you. Your former subordinates will misunderstand you. All your friends you've ever had will become your enemies. You will gouge out a blazing heart, offer up your lifetime's worth of passion, yet the world will only remember your treason and infamy. Subject Goo, General Goo, Goo Mahng, are you willing?" Each question seemed to thunder from the depths of the storm clouds, like heavenly sound piercing the sternum, like a sharp awl boring through the heart. The scene swam before his eyes, the colors seeming to scatter like snowflakes only to coalesce once more. Moshi fell helplessly among those fluttering fragments as if tumbling into a bottomless chasm. He opened his eyes. Only when scalding tears burned at the corners did he realize he was crying. His body didn't feel like his anymore. His soul felt like it had been cut into separate halves, locked in heated combat within the dispersing vision. His past conversations with Goo Mahng resurfaced one by one in his mind, crushing him into dust. Goo Mahng said, "They are my blood, my eyes, my arms, and my legs, my family, and my life." Yet Morsi had once rebuked him furiously. "As you bathed your hands in blood and killed your own comrades. Goo Mahng, when did you ever feel the slightest bit of regret?" Goo Mahng said, "How far would I have to be pushed to defect the nation that has slaughtered countless of my comrades and stirred the flames of war across the 9 provinces?" Yet Morsi had once said, "There was more than one path before you, and more than one country you could have fled to. Yet you went to the Liao kingdom. You wanted revenge for your dashed prospects, for your dead comrades in arms, for your own advancement. You didn't care whose blood you spilled." Goo Mahng said, "They will have a tombstone in my heart. I will remember every one of their names, every one of their faces, until the day I join them in death. They will never become rubble." And Morsi had once slapped him, had stabbed a single word through Goo Mahng's heart. He'd called him. As that word rose to mind, Morsi began to shake uncontrollably, horrified by the malice in what he'd said. He had actually called him dirty. Goo Mahng had lost his memories, but he instinctively longed to wear the forehead ribbon bestowed upon Chonghua's heroes. He instinctively yearned for the day he would be exonerated, once more able to openly and honestly don his uniform and ride into battle. Stand before his soldiers of 3 armies and watch the sun glinting off their armor. In all the years he had spent undercover, this thought was perhaps Goo Mahng's only comfort. All he had was the empty illusion, the sentimental imagining. Yet Morsi had scorned him as dirty. "I should have it. I should have it too." The blue-eyed Goo Mahng, who had lost his mind, had fought him for the ribbon. That voice filled with stubbornness and sorrow seemed to grate again in Morsi's ears through the flow of time. The vicious slap his past self had landed on Goo Mahng's cheek seemed to whip across his own face, stinging sharp and hot. "How dare you? How could you be worthy?" Morsi was surprised he kept from sobbing, that he could somehow bear this. He was unsure whether his pain had subsided into numbness, or if his heart had been forged into stone by the weight of despair. Not but one among the heavens and earth knew the events that had played out upon the Golden Terrace. He felt his limbs were about to be torn from his body. The jade scroll gnawed at his soul. But in the depths of his skull, a voice spoke faintly, circling him, interrogating him without cease. "Do you wish to keep reading? Morsi, Shi-He-Juan, what are you made of? Can you face this bloody past, this bloody truth?" Each word, each phrase was like a sharp knife cutting upon his heart, but his body no longer seemed to belong to him. Fresh blood filled his chest, but he couldn't feel it. He opened blank eyes like a walking corpse. "Pain, death, shattered core, none of that matters now," he murmured. "Blame me for being stone or ice. Let me keep reading. I want to know everything. These truths that have been hidden away, swallowed up, painted over. Why did you hide it from me? Why? Before you stepped onto this path, you pushed me away. You kept me in the dark. Why? Why?" "Since thou hast decided," the jade stone intoned, "offer up thy flesh and blood unto me to soothe your heart's regret." His chest throbbed with pain, as if an invisible claw covered in barbs had torn through his chest and seized his heart. The spiritual flow from his core fluctuated as if it would explode. Jiang Yexue had warned him. Reading these half-repaired jade scrolls required one's vital spirit and spiritual energy. He would suffer excruciating agony. But at that moment, Morsi only marveled that the pain was no more than this. It couldn't outweigh even a fraction of the pain brought on by these buried truths. Innumerable years swirled and re-emerged like clouds as he watched. The Golden Terrace vanished. What appeared in its place was the chamber of ice in the imperial prison. This was the cell he had seen in the time mirror, where Loo John-sheeng had been kept. The jade scroll had returned him to that ghastly hell bereft of light. As the scene in front of him came into focus, the taste of copper surged in Morsi's throat. He endured waves of dizziness, lifting his eyes to watch the truth surfacing once more. In that prison cell 8 years ago, one lip cast a weak glow. It spat out listless flames, as if its light would shrivel and burn out at any moment. Loo John-sheeng sat on the narrow and icy stone path. This Loo John-sheeng, who hadn't yet seen Goo Mahng, seemed a completely different man from the calm and guilt-free Deputy General Loo in the time mirror. He leaned against the wall, despondent, his face buried deep in the shadows. Strands of matted hair fell in front of his eyes, and his entire body emanated a sense of misery. Right now, he was truly a wretched prisoner. The prison doors creaked open.
Bastard Loo, the interrogation official sent by His Imperial Majesty is here,
the warden called out.
If you have any grievances, speak them. If you have any requests, make them. But remember to behave. You better not go crazy.
He put on a flattering smile and said to the man standing outside,
Your Excellency, if you please, you may withdraw.
The masked interrogation official stepped into the cell. Magic came to his fingers, and he closed the door with a wave of his hand. Within the cramped room, no one could hear their conversation, save for Shee, who was invisible as he watched. Loo John-sheeng showed no stir of emotion at the arrival of this interrogation official. Many such people had come in the past few days, but not a single one had brought him hope. He kept his head down, resting his sturdy arms on his knees. He dully repeated the request he had perhaps already made thousands of times.
I want to see Goo Mahng, he said flatly.
No one answered him.
There is nothing else I want. I have no grievances to report. I have nothing else to appeal.
Loo John-sheeng muttered without the slightest spark of life, as though he had been stripped of all vitality and left with a singular obsession.
I want to apologize to him in person. Afterward, you can kill me. Drawn and quartered, or death by 1,000 cuts, or boiled alive, whatever. I won't cry foul.
The interrogation official didn't speak. He knelt before Loo John-sheeng's dirty bed and kowtowed 3 careful times. Loo John-sheeng finally reacted, somewhat stunned.
What does this mean? Before the battle at Phoenix Cry Mountain, we were playing dice. We hadn't finished 10 rounds before I had to leave. We promised to keep playing after we returned victorious.
The visitor produced a pair of wooden dice from his Tian-kun pouch.
We can no longer have victory, but I brought the dice.
2 wooden dice, with a red lotus mark in place of the 6th dot. Loo John-sheeng seemed to have been struck by lightning. He leapt off the bed, grabbing this interrogation official by the lapels before the man finished speaking, before the mask even came off. These 2 brothers who had grown up together had the familiarity of siblings. Loo John-sheeng stared into the black eyes behind the mask. His entire life, he had never seen anyone with eyes brighter or livelier than his dear brother, his Mangar. Loo John-sheeng was a strong and sturdy man, but he immediately choked up. He looked into Goo Mahng's eyes and cried,
Mangar, it's you!
The interrogation official reached up and slid off the mask that hid his features. Goo Mahng's face, soaked with tears, was revealed to the dim light. The last time these brothers saw each other, they were a mighty and invincible general and a heroic and courageous commander. In the blink of an eye, one had been demoted to a commoner, and the other was condemned to die.
It's me.
Goo Mahng's voice was terribly hoarse, the rims of his eyes red.
I'm sorry. It's been so long, and I've only just come to see you now.
Reunited at last, they wept piteously in each other's arms. Eventually, Loo John-sheeng wiped away the tears on his face, tightly gripping Goo Mahng's hand. He had so many questions to ask. How did you get here? Why have you come? How are you now? But as Loo John-sheeng gazed into his brother's face, the first tear-thickened question that rose to his lips was,
Mangar, the battle at Phoenix Cry Mountain, do you blame me? Zhanxing.
Goo Mahng squeezed out between sobs. But Loo John-sheeng was mired in his guilt. He had stifled these words in his heart for so long. He had long since flooded their confines. He couldn't stop himself from muttering.
I was impulsive. I don't know what happened. It was like some demon took hold of my mind. I suddenly thought shedding blood and offering up my head for this nation wasn't worth it at all. I suddenly thought nothing we've done was worth it. But that's not how I really felt. Perhaps I wondered about these things here and there in the past, but that's not how I felt. I let down my 70,000 brothers at Phoenix Cry Mountain. I don't know what happened to me, Mangar. I betrayed your trust. I betrayed our brother's trust.
Each word and sentence was heartrending. Loo John-sheeng was the picture of woe and regret. Those red-rimmed eyes, wet with tears, were like hooks viciously driving into Moshi's flesh. How could the Loo John-sheeng in front of him, so remorseful for the great wrong he had done, be the same person as that sloppy and careless man in the time mirror? Everything Loo John-sheeng said in the time mirror had been insane.
Having me ruin his life is better than seeing him ruin his own and the lives of others. His Imperial Majesty was right to strip him of his power.
No, that wasn't true. None of it was true. The truth was nothing like that. Morsi watched Loo John-sheeng kneel before Goo Mahng, choking on his unbearable regret and agony. His ears were ringing. It was wrong. All wrong. He heard Loo John-sheeng apologizing to Goo Mahng over and over. He heard Loo John-sheeng say to Goo Mahng,
Mangar, I'm sorry.
Bitter cold coursed through Morsi. In hindsight, the Loo John-sheeng in the time mirror had already known his death would save 30,000 lives, which was why he'd embraced his guilt. He wasn't a lunatic who destroyed his brother's dream and thought himself infallible. Rather, he was keeping the secret from Morsi all the way to his death, never letting on that he was a hero cast in the mold of a villain, a loyal subject falsely accused. Footnote number 10. From a couplet about the general Yexue. The green hill is fortunate to be the burial ground of a loyal general. The white iron was innocent to be cast into the statues of traitors. Statues of the people who brought about Yexue's death were cast, kneeling at Yexue's grave. To protect Goo Mahng, to protect his remaining comrades, the emperor handed him the mask of a guilty subject, the subject of a reckless brute, and he wore it until death. But in truth, Loo John-sheeng had never betrayed Goo Mahng. He was Goo Mahng's true friend. He was Goo Mahng's worthy second in command. They were much the same, these brothers, both willing to die for their ideals. With great difficulty, Goo Mahng calmed Loo John-sheeng and helped him sit on the edge of the stone bed. Voice breaking on sobs, he said to this man racked with guilt,
Zhanxing, you never betrayed us. From beginning to end, you've always been our brother.
Though Loo John-sheeng had recovered himself somewhat, at this he broke down again. He buried his head into his hands, kneading his face.
No, I was the one who killed that Zhou Li envoy. I was the one who lost control, who was blinded by my own selfishness.
The rims of Goo Mahng's eyes were a vivid red as he interlocked their hands tightly.
It wasn't like that.
Loo John-sheeng said nothing. Goo Mahng's next words were like lightning breaking through the heavens, piercing through heavy clouds.
Listen to me. What blinded you wasn't your selfishness, but the Zhenlong chess piece the Liao Kingdom planted in your body.
Chapter 120. This Oath in Life and Death. Loo John-sheeng was like a caged beast. His emotions were running high, and it took Goo Mahng a long time to explain everything clearly. As a spectator, it was difficult for Morsi to describe Loo John-sheeng's expression after he heard the truth. When Goo Mahng began to explain the matter of the Zhenlong white chess piece, Loo John-sheeng's countenance fluctuated constantly, from astonishment to blankness, from blankness to wild joy, from wild joy to rage, from rage to sorrow, stuttering with shock countless times between. After Goo Mahng finished, Loo John-sheeng fell upon that icy stone bed as if freed. His wide eyes stared vacantly at the low ceiling of the prison. Only after several long minutes did he murmur, as if dreaming,
I didn't betray you all.
Goo Mahng's gaze went gentle, his voice hoarse and low.
You never have. I didn't betray you all. I didn't betray you all.
Veins bulged at Loo John-sheeng's temples as the overwhelming emotion flushed his cheeks red. But as he laughed, he began to weep. Perhaps embarrassed, he flung his arms over his eyes, but crystalline tears still seeped from beneath them.
rolling down to soak into his temples. Goo Mahng sat on the edge of his narrow stone bed and looked at Loo John-sheeng. He couldn't see Loo John-sheeng's eyes. They were still hidden behind his sturdy arms. He was still for a moment, then asked in a quiet voice,
Zhanxing, can you see them too?
It was such an inexplicable question, but Loo John-sheeng understood. So did Morsi.
Can you see them too? Those 70,000 soldiers crossing the river of the underworld to come to your side? Those who fought shoulder to shoulder with you? Those who drank their fill of strong wine before countless battles with you? Those brothers who swore their oaths with you? Do you see them flocking to your side? You're surrounded by 70,000 dead, whispering day and night without rest. Gradually, you stop being able to see the world in front of you. Bit by bit, so slowly you hardly notice. You begin living with the dead. You become a living tombstone, the names of those dead souls carved into your heart. Can you see them too?
Loo John-sheeng mumbled from dry lips. The first time, nothing intelligible came out. Only on the second attempt did he manage to say,
Always. I've seen them all along.
They were still for a long time before Goo Mahng replied,
Me too.
The candle flame in the prison shed a string of waxen tears.
Zhanxing, after Phoenix Cry Mountain, we are both living dead. Do you blame me?
Loo John-sheeng slowly lowered his arms, half a teary eye showing.
What? I tricked you. Tricked you all into following me onto this path. I promised you a grand future, but with me, none of you lived well for long. Instead, you became guilty subjects and reckless brutes.
Goo Mahng hung his head and stared into his hands.
Recently, I've been thinking about what kind of person I am.
His dense lashes trembled, casting a soft shadow on the bridge of his nose.
I know Chonghua has expressed many judgments of me. I've been praised, mocked, slandered, flattered. I never cared. I always felt I was doing the right thing, that I, Goo Mahng, had never betrayed my conscience.
He went on.
But after the battle of Phoenix Cry Mountain, I can't justify it to myself anymore. All along, again and again, I've said that I want to change Chonghua's and even the 9 provinces' views on slaves. I always told the people who followed me that I would take them home, that I would give them a future much brighter than the present. But it turns out one defeat is all it takes for me to be beaten back to my original state like a pathetic clown. I'm the general of an army, but I can't even wrangle the slightest fairness from my brothers.
Those whispers he had never heeded seemed to ring in his ears.
Power threatens kings. The higher the lowly slave climbs, the lower he'll fall. That man is the next Hua Po-an.
No. How could he compare to Hua Po-an? At least Hua Po-an established a country. At least his brothers received rewards and gained advantages. He, Goo Mahng, was a dog rolling in the mud. Even if he'd had Hua Po-an's nefarious intentions, he didn't have the ability to deliver on them. He was a charlatan, tricking that crowd of fools into following him to their deaths. What would they gain by following him? Dreams?
Some beast of the altar he is.
Mocking laughter circled him like a vulture. Goo Mahng slowly closed his eyes. When he opened them again, it was to look down at his calloused palms.
Now I finally understand. I'm no more than a gravedigger, expending so much time and effort just to bury all my brothers in a pit.
Loo John-sheeng didn't make a sound as he turned his head. He looked at Goo Mahng contemplatively.
His Imperial Majesty won't be reversing my sentence, will he?
Before Goo Mahng could answer, he continued.
I know the answer. The old nobles, the black magic curse. Our new emperor is too green. Even if it were someone else in my place, he wouldn't be able to save them.
Goo Mahng lowered his head.
Zhanxing, I'm sorry. Other than telling you the truth, I can't do anything.
Loo John-sheeng turned his blank gaze back to the ceiling. The tear stains at the ends of his eyes were already dry.
It's fine. I don't blame him, nor do I blame you.
Freed of the shackles of a guilty subject, Loo John-sheeng had relaxed entirely. Anyone would have complicated emotions when facing a death sentence, but Loo John-sheeng seemed content.
It was my bad luck to be planted with the Zhanxing chess piece.
Loo John-sheeng picked up the 2 wooden dice Goo Mahng had brought, running his fingers over them.
Do you remember? When we played dice as kids, I'd lose every time and have to give you my sweets. My luck has always been bad. It's no one else's fault.
As he spoke, he tossed the dice carelessly onto the bed. The 2 wooden cubes tumbled, eventually rolling to a stop. Snake eyes.
See? Was I wrong?
Goo Mahng looked down again, his shoulders shaking.
Some time ago, I heard there was a gambling demon in Chonghua who showed up wherever he went in a green copper mask. If you chanced upon him, you would always win. He never tallied a single loss at the gambling tables. That person was you, wasn't it?
Loo John-sheeng stiffened.
You always get whatever number you roll for. What bad luck.
Goo Mahng rasped.
It's only that you've always indulged me. You wanted to share your sweets with me.
Looking at Goo Mahng, Loo John-sheeng heaved a soft sigh. Of course he wanted to protect this little rascal. This had been destined upon their first meeting, more or less. Back when Loo John-sheeng had just been sold to Wangshu Manor, he came across Mu Zhonglian bullying Goo Mahng, then only 4 years old. The young master had smeared oil paints all over Goo Mahng's face and forced him to stand frozen with a bowl of water balanced on his head. Mu Zhonggongzi laughed wildly.
Stand there for a full shirchun. If a drop of water spills from the bowl, every slave in the entire manor will go hungry along with you.
Loo John-sheeng had inwardly despaired. He must have met with 8 lifetimes worth of misfortune. This little brat was so young. How could he endure such a thing for so long? It looked like Loo John-sheeng would go hungry his first day in the manor. But against all expectations, the cook handed him 2 big fluffy steam buns when dinner time came around. This was how Loo John-sheeng learned the little kid had actually gathered all his willpower and stood motionless for a full shirchun. This greatly upset Mu Zhonglian, so even though the other slaves escaped hunger that night, Goo Mahng was still given nothing. Loo John-sheeng ate 1 steamed bun, then pocketed the other and went looking for that little kid. He searched the whole of the sprawling Wangshu Manor before he finally found Goo Mahng crouching in some grass in the flower garden.
Hey!
He patted Goo Mahng's shoulder. A brightly colored little face scribbled with oil paints turned to him. The child chewed silently, his lips covered in dirt. Loo John-sheeng couldn't make out his features clearly. What struck him were those pitch-black eyes, as brilliant as the stars in the sky.
Why are you eating dirt?
Loo John-sheeng asked, startled. Goo Mahng was so pitiable. He was only 4 years old, his childish voice nasal with tears.
Guga, I'm hungry.
As Loo John-sheeng gazed into those helpless eyes like a little cub's, his heart melted. He hastily dug out the 2nd steamed bun and said gently,
This is for you. Don't cry. Ayo, Guga will protect you. Look at you, you poor little thing.
In the cold prison, Loo John-sheeng studied Goo Mahng in front of him. Stripped of his battle armor and his glory, the present Goo Mahng was no different from that little rascal who had eaten mud with his head down, just as helpless, and with just as little to his name. They had suffered for almost half their lives, but they never truly gained anything. Loo John-sheeng's grimy face gradually showed a flicker of exasperated warmth. He reached out a dirty hand to stroke Goo Mahng's cheek and wiped the wet corners of Goo Mahng's eyes.
Mangar, don't cry.
Goo Mahng said nothing. The corners of Loo John-sheeng's mouth curled in the wisp of a smile.
Guga will protect you. Look at you. You poor little thing.
Goo Mahng squeezed his eyes shut, his features filled with pain as he swallowed thickly.
This is the last time Guga can protect you. In the future, whether you advance or retreat, whether you forge ahead or set down your sword and retire, it's all up to you. Mangar,
I'm happy you could tell me the truth. Even if nothing can be changed, at least I know. I never betrayed my 70,000 comrades. I never betrayed you. I can finally be at ease. Keep going. Whatever you choose, your Luca will be happy for you.
As he spoke, he bit his lower lip, trying to hold back his emotions with all his might. At last, he grabbed Goo Mahng, who had long been weeping silently, and pressed their foreheads together. He clapped Goo Mahng on the shoulder.
After all, you're my brother, even if we've never sworn.
Goo Mahng swiped tears from his face, then looked up through bright black eyes.
Let's swear it.
Before Loo John-sheeng could respond, Goo Mahng replaced his mask and left the room. Very soon, he returned to the cell with a jar of pear blossom white wine. Holding back tears, Goo Mahng schooled his tone to solemnity.
Loo John-sheeng, after today's farewell, the two of us will meet again at the autumn execution. I was born without a family, without a father, without anyone to rely on. I've never dared be reckless, never dared be unbridled, never dared overstep my bounds. Before others, I've always endured in silence and rarely showed my true feelings, except with Loo John, who showed me what it feels like to have a family, to have a big brother.
As Goo Mahng spoke, the rims of Loo John-sheeng's eyes also reddened. Memories of the care they had shown each other since their youth, all the times they leaned on each other, sprang vividly to their minds, flashing past one by one.
Xiongjiang, thank you for these 20 years of care.
Footnote 11, a respectful term of address meaning older brother. Xiongjiang. Loo John-sheeng raised his head. He'd thought that, since he was to be executed in a few months, he had no more need for deep connections with other people. But upon hearing Goo Mahng speak, each word sincere and agonizingly heartfelt, he was overwhelmed. Passion welled up in his chest. He blinked back hot tears and took the pear blossom white from Goo Mahng's hand.
I was born to a life as insignificant as drifting duckweed, and never expected I have a rightful and proper brother. Even less had I expected that, right now, with my infamy spread far and wide as the end of my life draws near, the heavens would still give me the chance to become your sworn brother. I once disliked, distrusted, and disdained these rights, but today, I, Loo John-sheeng, could not be happier. All right, let's swear, he continued, even if we were born slaves, even if the end is nigh, even if the future is vast and unknown, today, we'll swear for the hell of it. The two of us didn't ask to be born together and can't ask to die together, but we can carve this into our hearts, never to be forgotten, even in the yellow springs.
Both tilted their heads back to drink. They bowed to each other, then broke into laughter, hand in hand. But that laughter held tears, and those tears filled their eyes.
Daga,
Goo Mahng said. Loo John-sheeng laughed out loud.
From now on, neither of us are alone anymore. Even when I walk in the underworld, I'll know I have a true brother.
That tragic yet bold, despairing yet glorious laughter surrounded Morsi as the scene in the prison began to blur. It gradually lost definition, the figures of those two brothers becoming hazy.
Loo John-sheeng, Goo Mahng.
Brothers. So Goo Mahng had once gone to the prison to see Loo John-sheeng. The two of them had sworn to each other as brothers, and sworn to each other as family. All of Loo John-sheeng's reactions within the time mirror had been an act. He had never been a traitor who carelessly destroyed Goo Mahng's dream and heartlessly deserted his 70,000 comrades. His true intent was,
this is the last time Guga can protect you. In the future, whether you advance or retreat, whether you forge ahead or set down your sword and retire, it's all up to you. Keep going. Whatever you choose, your Luga will be happy for you. After all, you're my brother.
When the blade whistled down to the autumn execution, leaving them on opposite sides of death,
It didn't merely take Goo Mahng's last comrade. When that executioner's blade fell, it took his only family, newly sworn, so recently gained, that the times he called him Daga could be counted on one hand. In all the world, his only big brother. Chapter 121. The long winter will pass. Agony burst from Morsi's heart and spread through his body like cracks opening in the earth. Within the history recording Jade Scroll, Morsi went down on one knee, striving to endure it, and spat out a mouthful of blood. The image of the prison had shattered, leaving behind a blur of light and shadow. Or perhaps it wasn't the light that was blurry, but his vision. The Jade Scroll was stripping his spiritual energy and tearing at his flesh. The pain in his soul and the torture of his body broke across his insides like the tide. The icy voice of the Jade Scroll spoke again, echoing in his ears.
This scroll is damaged, its pages ruined beyond repair. Shouldst thou persist, thou wilt suffer severe injury to the flesh.
Severe injury to the flesh. What did he care about severe injury to the flesh? What physical suffering could be more painful than these truths? Goo Mahng. He was clearly a loyal subject charged with a mission, but he had buried himself in filthy mud, unable to escape. He clearly knew the truth, but had silently endured unimaginable torment. He was clearly a flame that wanted to warm the world, but he was trampled again and again, stamped out, ground to ash. He had clearly just sworn an elder brother of his own. Morsi coughed blood, swallowing the shattered sobs in his throat, closing his eyes with a shiver. Tears escaped his eyes, flowing freely down his cheeks. He was on the verge of collapse. Back then, what must Goo Mahng have felt? He had just gained a sworn brother, and he had only gotten to call him Daga a few times before sending him to the executioner. He knew his Daga was innocent, but he couldn't exonerate him, nor tell anyone the truth. When Goo Mahng smiled as he swore that oath and kowtowed to Loo John-sheeng, what had he felt? What physical injury could hurt more than the sorrow of being a spy? Knowledge that couldn't be shared, love that couldn't be spoken, a pair of hands stained against his will with the blood of his brothers, his comrades, watching as the demons and beasts around him devastated the nation he used to protect, but having to laugh and shout as if delighted, hearing the wailing of civilians from his motherland, the crying of infants, the enraged shouts of soldiers, but having to put on an indestructible mask, unable to shed a single tear, unable to show the slightest mercy, unable to expose the tiniest hint of hesitation or sorrow. How must that have felt? His Goo Mahng, his Gu Shuxiong, Chonghua's General Gu, was someone who would take the military records in both hands and carve the names of each and every faceless soldier into his memory. He was so gentle, so kind, so quick to smile, so deeply caring and reverential toward every life. He could hardly bear to trample a flower on the battlefield, yet he had wielded the knife that personally stabbed those living bodies. He may as well have carved out his own heart. Morsi was choking on blood, slowly staggering forward. All around was formless darkness. The only spark of light was in the distance. He knew it was the next memory he needed, stored in the history-recording Jade Scroll. He walked onward. With each step, it felt like invisible hands ripping into his insides, frantically plundering his body for blood and vitality. The Jade Scroll had consumed his spiritual energy down to the dregs, but that light was still so far from him. So far, it resembled Goo Mahng from 8 years ago, a shabby cloth sack on his back carrying his sworn brother's head, leaving Chonghua in the setting sun, setting his steps to the strains of that old beggar's sorrowful folk song.
Time is swift as the shuttle does fly, yet before it I think 2 paths lie. In bygone days was I envy of all. Careless years passed in careless thrall. Alas, today is my purse light. Each hour,
minute a year-long blight. I, too, once rode a splendid horse. My flag bid thousands on their course. One cry dispersed the demon crowd, godlike, before my feet all bowed. Today none mark my glories past. Men once called friends all turn their backs. By day I starve, my nights lack sleep. Street side I sing here for my keep. Too high a flight, too far a fall. I blame not heaven nor kin foretold. But knowing now my bitter end, I rue the demons I once called friends. And now that naught can change my state, I beg you all to avoid my fate. And now he'd come to find out that was not the retreating silhouette of a traitor, but a hero's farewell. Goo Mahng stood upon Chonghua Bridge, looking back over the capital city, knowing that he would soon fight a battle with no one to support him. Soon enter the fray splattered in blood and gore, knowing he was walking into hell. In a soft murmur, he had said, "Goodbye." Then he carefully pocketed the only travel ration his homeland would grant him, the pastry the old beggar gave him, already stone cold. He lowered his head and walked toward his 70,000 dead brothers. Goo Mahng, Goo Mahng, stop walking, will you? Why can't I catch up to you? Morsi took step after step toward that light, tears ceaselessly flowing down his face. The darkness around him seemed to take the form of innumerable dancing shadows, mocking him and cursing him. All the vicious things he said in the past pierced his bones once more. Traitor! Don't you know how dirty you are? You wanted revenge for your dashed prospects, for your dead comrades in arms, for your own advancement. You didn't care whose blood you spilled. It wasn't like that. It wasn't like that. Don't curse him. Don't curse him. He's innocent. Morsi had been driven crazy by those wild shadows in the dark. He could no longer feel the torturous pain inflicted by the Jade Scroll. His only wish was to wade back into the river of time to tell his past self, it wasn't like that. The truth wasn't like that. Goo Mahng, he had never thought of revenge, had never thought of ambition. He only wanted to guard those 70,000 gravestones, the last dignity his brothers deserved. He only wanted to see Chonghua sprouting green after the snow melted, red peach blossoms blooming again on the shore. He only wanted to see realized those promises the Emperor had made to him on the Golden Terrace, a peaceful world of equality that would blossom from bodies that had been trampled into mud, to see the old replaced by the new, verdant growing replacing spilled blood, right replacing wrong, happiness replacing sorrow. He only wanted to see heroes becoming heroes regardless of their birth, to see the gravestones of martyrs receive a jug of clear wine and a burned slip of paper, peace. When did he ever bear the slightest hatred? He just wanted to bring his brothers home. Morsi staggered along, step by step, walking toward that light, as if each step could bring him closer to that General Goo from 8 years ago. It hurt so much. His spiritual energy was spent, but he couldn't stop. The Jade Scroll began to pull power from his core, threatening to crack open his heart. But he didn't feel the sickening pain. He just had a thought. The instant it occurred to him, his tears fell like rain. He thought, when Goo Mangg's core had shattered, did it feel like this? Did his little Shizun, who was so afraid of pain, who was so very gentle and cried so easily, feel 10 or 20 times this agony? Even while in that much pain, had he endured the scorn and the judgment of his comrades, with no one to care for him, no one to look after him, no one to recognize how much he had sacrificed? When that smiling General Goo turned to leave Chonghua, no one knew what he felt exactly. Goo Mahng. As he labored onward, Morsi had a vision. He saw, in that faltering light, a Goo Mahng who wore the military uniform of Chonghua. He was smiling, and followed by Loo John-sheeng, followed by the figures of all those brothers who had died in battle. Zhao Sheng, Wei Ping, Luo Xiaoquan. They surrounded him. Goo Mahng looked so happy, sharper, more polished, more high-spirited and heroic than Morsi had ever seen him. Morsi walked toward them. Goo Mahng seemed to notice him, his black eyes flashing with surprise. An impossibly brilliant smile crinkled the elegant ends of his eyes. He smiled so brightly, without the slightest pain or shadow in his eyes. He held out his arms to Morsi.
Shitty, stop crying. It's fine. Look, this is the dream I've had all my life. I hope one day the world will right itself, here in Chonghua, or within the entire cultivation world. Don't laugh at me for being naive or idealistic. I know things will get better and better, just as flowers will bloom, rain will cease, and winter will pass. My princess, my royal highness, believe me. When has your Goo Mahng ever lied to you?
Goo Mahng had once said these words to the young Morsi as they lay on the riverbank in their academy days. Now, as they crossed time and space, tears streamed down Morsi's cheeks.
Flowers will bloom, rain will cease, winter will pass. Believe me, my princess, my royal highness, because if even you lose faith in me.
The light dimmed. Goo Mahng's silhouette distorted, and the military uniform turned into snowy white slave robes as a pitch-black collar locked itself around his neck. The figures of Loo John-sheeng and his brothers scattered and faded behind him like swirling snow. In the darkness, in the unending night, Goo Mahng fell to his knees with his hands soaked in blood, curling up like an abandoned beast.
If even you lose faith in me, then I truly will be fighting on my own. I will really be alone. Believe in me, won't you?
His figure became smaller and smaller, more and more stooped. Morsi rushed toward him as if crazed, heedless of anything else, shouting in grief.
Goo Mahng! Goo Mahng, I believe you. I believe what you said, that flowers will bloom, rain will cease, winter will pass. Will you turn back? Will you turn from that dark road?
In his 33 years, his Goo-Mahng had been a slave for more than 20, a traitor for 5, a prisoner for 3. If you made a reckoning of his life like this, he had never lived a single good day. It hit Morsi then that Goo Mahng had never once thought of himself. He had never wondered where he would be with his filthy body and bloody hands. On the day the flowers bloomed, the rain ceased, and the winter passed. Yet Morsi had once said to that selfless and noble commander,
"You don't care whose blood you'd spilled."
When had Goo Mahng ever not cared whose blood he spilled? By the time he was forced to kill his first innocent citizen of Chonghua, he was probably already dead and buried in his own heart. That beam of light at the end of the jade scroll flickered. Goo Mahng grew more and more distant. Morsi couldn't catch up. He heard Jiang Yexue's voice from far away, as if he were speaking across the sea.
Morsi! Morsi! Wake up! If you keep going, your core will shatter! Morsi!
The illusory Goo Mahng stopped walking and turned.
Morsi, don't chase after me anymore.
Flimsy snow-white robes fluttered in the wind. Ink-dark hair framed his hollow cheeks. In the many years since he had gone from worshipped commander to despised traitor, he had thinned so much, weakened so much. He would never be as strong and healthy as he used to be. Even the color of his eyes had changed. But those eyes, which had seen untold death and blood, hidden countless secrets and sorrows, were still so bright and so gentle. Even in the furthest depths of suffering, they held the strongest hope.
Don't follow me any further. Everyone has their own path. I chose this one long ago. It's not an easy road to take, but I know it was right. Goo Mahng. It was the right one, so I don't regret it.
The wind rose, fluttering through Goo Mahng's robes. Slowly, he scattered in the breeze like crushed flower petals. Goo Mahng smiled at him before he dissolved, a smile so radiant it was like the first golden bloom of winter jasmine, bravely poking its head from the snow, as if to say, "Look, I didn't lie to you. Spring will come. Spring has already come." A sudden force yanked him out of the darkness. The after-image of Goo Mahng lingered in his vision, but Morsi had at last returned to Jiang Yexue's residence. He hadn't yet come to his senses, Blood streamed endlessly from his split skin and from his mouth, but he couldn't feel the pain. He heard Jiang Yexue calling for him, anxious, his fingers on Mo Xi's heart vein as he passed him spiritual energy. He felt nothing. His eyes were open. He didn't blink. He was afraid, if he did, what remained of Goo Mahng's smile would disappear completely. Tears left tracks on his blood-stained face, rolling down his temples. Mo Xi. Jiang Yexue saw that Mo Xi's spiritual energy was exhausted, that his core, once damaged by Goo Mahng, was once again on the precipice of failing. He found himself asking, voice rough, "Why? What was all this for?" Mo Xi didn't respond, as if his soul had died. After a long while, his lips moved. Gently, he withdrew his hand from Jiang Yexue's grasp. Mo Xi? Even in this state, he struggled arduously to his feet. Mo Xi forced himself to stand, bolstered by some unknown strength, and walked unsteadily toward the door. At the sight of him on the verge of collapse, yet still obstinately moving forward, Jiang Yexue turned pale as a sheet. "Where do you think you're going?" Mo Xi paused. Home. He had to go home and see Goo Mahng. He had to tell Goo Mahng, who'd recovered his memories, the truth he'd seen. He needed to get home as soon as possible. He needed to rush back to belatedly say, "Wait for me," as he should have said 8 years ago. He needed to add, "I believe you."
I'm sorry. I'll never let you be alone again. In darkness or in infamy, I'll endure it with you. I will brave it. With you.
He's not at Shih Manor anymore. A sudden shout, like a peal of thunder. Mo Xi turned. Jiang Yexue's expression was unsightly, as if he couldn't decide whether to speak or not. But at last, he gritted his teeth. "When you were reading the scroll, Mu Zhonglian came by. Sushu Terrace has taken Goo Mahng away." Well, I originally planned to read another chapter, but that seems like a good stopping point, given what's on the next chapter. Okay. Yeah. Let's talk, shall we? So we have chapter 119, where Goo Mahng gets to tell Loo John-sheeng the truth. And we also find out that what Loo John-sheeng said to Mo Xi was also not the truth. He wasn't some crazed lunatic friend, which I'm very, very glad to hear about. But he was protecting Goo Mahng. Even then, he was taking the secret he found out to the grave. I'm very happy. I'm not even sure. I'm relieved that the emperor allowed Goo Mahng to go and tell Loo John-sheeng the truth. And even Loo John-sheeng said it himself, like, "I'm happy that I know the truth." That gave him the ability to truly rest without regrets. And, a lot of in Chinese culture, they believe in, if certain things are done before you die, then you may never know peace when you die. And that's not necessarily the way things are here, like in America. We just say rest in peace. It doesn't matter what you did before you died. If you have any regrets or anything like that, it's just like rest in peace. We even say it to people who were bad people in life and, fake and stuff at their funerals. But Loo John-sheeng truly gets to rest in peace. And before he's executed, there's just a peace in knowing the truth, knowing that you didn't betray your 70,000 comrades, but that you were manipulated. And so I'm glad the emperor allowed them to have that. And it hurt so much to read all of this, but like Goo Mahng expressing his guilt and feeling like he let his comrades down and that they should never have followed him because he didn't give them riches and glory and rewards, but instead brought them death and pain. And so I definitely understand his feelings, even though like Loo John-sheeng, like, I don't blame you, my guy. These chapters were just really, really hard. And then even learning that at just the age of 4, at the age of 4 years old, Goo Mahng was being abused already. And so I should have highlighted on the page where Morsi says, like, for the majority of Goo Manh's life, he had not lived any happy days. The man literally had been abused for us. Let me find it. Yeah, here we are. So on page 249, it says that in his 33 years, his Goo Mahng had been a slave for more than 20 of them, a trader for 5, and a prisoner for 3. So if we have more than 20 years, I don't know if that's 21, 22, 23, but let's just say 21, okay? Better yet, let's put it at 23. Okay, 23 years plus 5 years a trader, so that's 28. And then 3 years a prisoner, so 31. 31 years of his life. 31 years of his life. And I'm sure I could do the math like for real correctly, but I don't want to. But one can only take so much. And it baffles me even more now. I know we still have more to read. We're like slightly over 50% done, but it baffles me now for sure when there are people who say that they are so upset with Goo Mahng because he did Morsi so dirty. I'm like, do you realize that the majority of his life has been shrouded in darkness and pain and suffering and feelings of worthlessness? Like, how could he not have done the things that he done to Morsi or said the things that he said to Morsi? Like, can we not just understand the human mind a little better? You know, it's upsetting. But anyway, so the other thing is, as Morsi is watching all of this, of course, he's feeling this extreme guilt for all the things that he said and, you know, slapping Goo Mahng and everything like that. And it's one of those things where it's like, I get it. And it's okay that he feels guilty, but he shouldn't feel guilty because at the end of the day, these are things that he did not know. He's not wrong to have had the feelings that he had, to have said the things that he said because he did not know the truth. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that ignorance makes one innocent, but in a circumstance such as this one, I think it's okay. But it just hurts so much to see him experience the hurt of someone else. Like if you are a compassionate person, then you know what it's like to feel the pain of someone else. It hurts you so much. You know, you may not feel like you're feeling like you can actually feel that pain with them, but it hurts so much. And then like chapter 20, that just completely tore me apart because I can relate to it on such a personal level that it just, on top of like, you know, trying to be in character and read and stuff, it was just devastating because I know what it's like to feel alone and to feel lonely and then just have that one person that you feel like you completely trust, that you can open up to so completely because like, you know, I've shared my story with you guys, in some ways, you know, not all the details and stuff, but growing up in isolation with just like me, my mother, her husband, my siblings, and not really having close connections with my family is a difficult thing. And then the ups and downs that I had constantly with the woman that gave birth to me, it never made me feel like I had any stability in my life. And then at 18, I met my husband. And when I tell you guys, even having lived with my mother for most of my life, I still say my husband has been the most consistent person ever in my life. He's the person that I trust the most, that I love the most and respect the most. And to see that that's what Goo Mahng found in Loo John-sheeng at such a young age, all the way through, you know, to the end of their time together, it's just so sad, number one, that they didn't feel like they had any family at anyone else, that they didn't have family in anyone else except each other. I know what that feels like. And like, yes, I'm happy now that I have my dad and my sister and, you know, a couple other family members, because now I don't have to rely so heavily on my husband. But to know that these two literally only had each other. And then I totally understand having a hard time accepting Morsi's love given his upbringing. Oh my God. Anyway, the point is that chapter completely wrecked me. But I'm so elated that they got to swear to be, they got to be sworn brothers, and not in the way that, we sometimes see in Danmei, like, oh, sworn brothers is really for, being together. No, this was literally them honoring each other as Daga, in his Didi, which is little brother. And so that scene, that just tore me apart, y'all. And then chapter 21. Morsi realizing that being a spy was truly the most painful thing, more painful than any physical suffering that could be happening, because all of the true feelings that you have as a spy, you can't share those. You can't show those. You have to bury them within your heart and pretend you're not hurting. Pretend you're not disgusted. Pretend you're not dissatisfied. Pretend you're not longing for something else, so that is painful. Like I always say, because, I've watched shows like The Rookie and I don't remember her name because it's been so long now, but the one black lady who played an undercover agent, I'm like, I could never be an undercover agent because it's so taxing on the person and it's life-changing, And so it's nice to, I won't say it's nice to see, but it's nice to see that Morsi sees that hurt is really painful. I won't say it's necessarily worse than physical pain. I mean, the guy's just not feeling the pain. But if he could feel the pain, maybe he would think they were on par with each other. Anyway, the other thing I wanted to say, speaking about, like the old dying and the new blossoming and whatnot, that is the kind of world that we live in. A lot of times the old has to pass away, quite literally, in order for the new to take shape. We live in a world where a lot of times we have our elders, they're like, you need to respect your elders, or I'm right because I say so. And it's like, no, you're actually not. And a lot of times younger people get flack from old people for being arrogant and not respectful and this and this and that. And really, it's hard to make progression in many things because of old people. No offense to old people. I'm not saying all old people are this way, but just in general, generational curses and setbacks in life are hard to overcome a lot of times because old people don't want to change what they know. And it kind of reminds me, like, even in the, as they call them, the Bible days, which technically all days are the Bible days, whatever. But in the old Bible days, when the slaves were freed from Egypt, they wandered around for 40 freaking years. And it wasn't until the old passed away that things were able to get better. So literally, yes, sometimes the old generations of people have to die or have to be removed from their power in order for change to affect. Like that has to happen. So there's that. Yeah. And then just, I don't know, y'all. I'm not going to say anything else because I'm overly emotional right now. And it is Thursday night. I'm reading this. I need to get ready to pack so that I can, travel for this funeral and whatnot. And it's just interesting to see the relationship that developed between Loo John-sheeng and Goo Mahng. In the very beginning, he was like, oh, I love you. Well, not I love you. I'm sorry. I got you. Your Daga will protect you. And it was just like, he didn't need to see Goo Mahng do anything. He didn't need to hear any explanations or anything from Goo Mahng. He just immediately knew that he was going to be protecting this person for the rest of his life. And even though it wasn't said, that is a kind of love that is absolutely so important. That there to me is unconditional love. It doesn't matter what the person has done or said. You just love them and you're going to show that love because that's what they deserve, and like, Goo Mahng was innocent at that time. He was just 4 years old. And it kind of reminds me of my papa because when I look back on my childhood memories, which are blotchy, I was telling my dad that my papa was the first person in my life to show me that you just love someone just because. That I didn't have to do anything to earn his love or to feel worthy of his love. You know, we would just play this game where he would say, and it wasn't with just "I love you," but it was with other things too. But, you know, he would say, "I love you." And I would say, "Why?" And he'd be like, "Because." And I'd be like, "Because what?" And he'd go, because. And so I'd go, because what? Because what? Because. And just like keep adding a because on until someone lost count, usually him first. But to just see that unconditional love, what pure love looks like on a platonic level, I'm glad that we got to see a little bit of that here. Just like a good friendship, because for so long, while reading these chapters, I've been like, who is this Loo John-sheeng character? And is he a good person or is he a bad person? Oh, no, he's a lunatic friend. Only to find out that no, he's not a lunatic friend. In fact, he's the best friend. He is the best of friends. I would love to have a Loo John-sheeng as a friend. I mean, I do, but I'm just saying. So, I hope you guys not enjoyed these chapters. I hope they I don't know. I'm gonna just go. Okay? Y'all have a good night or a good morning, and wa ai ni men.